Well, it's great to see everybody. Thank you for rejoining us. We had a really interesting set of conversations yesterday, and I think today is going to be just as interesting and engaging. Okay, we just got more volume. Great. All right. So, a couple of announcements on how we're going to do this morning. We have a packed agenda today, and I think it's going to be really engaging. And so, but first we have a special guest appearance from Jason Ullman, the state engineer for Colorado, who offered to answer or provide a bit of explanation about the Free River conditions. We had a couple questions yesterday. So we're gonna hear from Jason first for a few minutes. Then we'll hear from Carlos. And then we'll hear from John and Becky, and I'll lead them in a moderated conversation. And then after that, we'll have a Q&A session with Carlos and John and Becky all together. That's moderated by our Slido team. So that's how we're gonna kick it off today. But first, before we do that, I wanted to share a brief quote with you all. And thank you to Matt Mosley for sharing this with me. This is in Matt's new book that just came out. And this is a quote from David Getchis from his Water Law Nutshell that was published in 2008. So before we get into the rest of the conversations today, I just thought I'd share this quote with you. We ask a lot of water law. Since we depend on water for so much, it touches our deepest values. Besides its pervasive commercial importance, it is at the core of things we care the most about: health, sustenance, ecological integrity, and aesthetics. It even provides community identity and spiritual satisfaction. Is it possible to satisfy all of these values? With so much at stake, water law presents unparalleled opportunities for analysis and creativity. It's an evolving field bristling with conflicts among people's most cherished values. And I think that quote was certainly present in 2008 and is still very relevant today. And I also want to recognize Ann Getchis, who's been with us for the last 2 days. Ann, it's wonderful to have you here with us. Thank you for coming. Okay, so with that, I'm going to welcome Jason to the stage. He's going to provide a couple quick comments, and then we'll get on with the rest of the agenda. So Jason, thank you so much.
As Chris said, I am Jason Ullman. If you don't know me, I'm the state engineer for the state of Colorado. I want to thank Chris and Doug for allowing me to maybe answer some of the questions that were asked about Free River. I was a little surprised that that was such a topic of interest yesterday. So I think it's important. We're here to...
Hey, Jason, 1 second. Let's give you the mic. Just put that on you real quick, anywhere.
Then I don't have to lean into this.
Yeah, and then we'll just leave that right there, and then you can give it back. Yeah, you're on.
Now can you hear me? Okay, so I'll start over. So for those of you that don't know me, I'm Jason Ullman. I'm the state engineer for the state of Colorado. I was a little surprised that Free River became such a topic of interest yesterday, but I feel like you're all here at a water law conference. It would be good for some explanation of what Free River is and what it is not. And so I guess first, maybe Free River should be given a different name, right? Because it's not what maybe the public thinks when you hear Free River. It doesn't mean people can take whatever they want for whatever they want, whenever they want. It instead represents a condition on the streams in Colorado and probably other upper basin states where there is no call being placed by a valid water right. And so that means that my staff, who as state engineer, I lead a staff of about 300 people around the state of Colorado that do administration of water rights. They administer and make the prior appropriation system work in the state of Colorado. So Free River means essentially that there isn't a call being placed that our staff are out curtailing people to meet. So it's not mean that people can use it and wastewater. They can't use it for whatever they want. It is recognized in our Constitution in Article 16, Section 6, where it says the right to divert the unappropriated waters of any natural stream to beneficial uses shall never be denied. I want to highlight that it says beneficial uses. It must be used for beneficial uses. It does result at sometimes where, conditions where people can take more than what they may have a decree for, but they are still legally allowed to take that water and put it to a beneficial use. I think some of the misunderstanding around Free River has been perpetuated by a 2024 study by the University of Virginia that seemed to indicate that this was some kind of a loophole that the state should close. I guess, again, I will say this is a constitutional provision, and I'm going to explain why, it's not a fix for the system that maybe some people think it is. So, like I said, it is essentially a condition on the stream when there's no call, right? And so what did that study do that we think misrepresented what happens during Free River? Well, one, they used diversion record data in Colorado, and Colorado has probably the most robust records of diversion of any state in the union. We record diversions because the statute requires my division engineers to report them to me, what's being diverted for what beneficial use during the year. And they took the diversion data and tried to use it in a ways that it wasn't intended to be used for. And if you look at the total diversions as represented by a graph in that study, the total diversion at the peak of the year was like 3.5 times what actually occurred. So if I pull that same data out of our database and I know what all the codes mean, because there's codes for storage use, there's codes for natural stream flow diversion, there's codes that record when augmentation water is being delivered, and a lot of that was double counted. They counted storage that was going to water rights as Free River diversions. That's storage water that was diverted in priority and released for use by water rights that have a right to use it. And so I guess it's fair to say that I think that some information in that study was a gross misrepresentation of what actually occurs in Colorado. And then I guess the other thing I want to say is that, Free River conditions occur primarily in spring runoff in most of the state of Colorado. And so that's the only time when there's not calls on the river that use all the water. So there's not enough supply to meet demand. In spring runoff, that's really the only time of the year when in most years there's Free River conditions. We're talking Colorado River on the entire western slope. During those periods of Free River, that's when most of the water is leaving the state of Colorado. So 8+ million acre feet leaves the state of Colorado on average every year. Now this year it's not going to be 8 million acre feet because we're having the record low snowpack that everybody has talked about. But on average, 8+ million acre feet leave the state in 8+ major streams that leave the state and head downstream to Lake Powell. And so that's occurring. These Free River conditions are what is keeping the river flowing out of the state of Colorado. And because of that, I guess maybe the specific situation that I saw a few people say, well, there was some communication going around about the call being taken off at the Shoshone diversion, and there's Free River conditions because some of our staff they try to be transparent with users, and they sent emails out to users to tell them that the Shoshone call was off. It was off because they have an infrastructure issue there where the low flows have created a large sandbar in front of the diversion, and it's become difficult for them to take all of the available stream flow. And you have to take all available stream flow to ask our office to go shut people off above you to bring water down to your diversion, because that makes sense, right? If you're gonna ask us to shut people off, you need to make an efficient diversion. So the call's off for a short period of time on the main stem of the Colorado right now because of that, because of an infrastructure issue. It doesn't mean that it's gonna be off for very long. Xcel Energy is working hard to get their diversion structure to where it can take all available stream flow. And then the second or last thing I want to make is that even like looking at the main stem of the Colorado and the main stem of some of these streams isn't representative of what's going on in the state of Colorado, because the call may be off on the main stem of the Colorado right now, but I can tell you that in the Gunnison River Basin, the Uncompahgre is on call to an 1882 water right currently. The Surface Creek, which is the Cedar Edge area where there's a lot of orchards and vineyards, on call to an 1887 priority. In Colorado Division, 1885 on Divide Creek, 1912 on Plateau Creek. In the southwest of Colorado, Dolores River on call to an 1885 priority. The La Plata River, 1888. In Division 6 in the Yampa, the Bear River on call to an 1884 priority, and the Piceance Creek on call to an 1882 priority. So there are not widespread Free River conditions occurring, and I think one of the questions yesterday was, is it appropriate for there to be Free River in a year like this? And I mean, in some places where there's not ability to take all the water, maybe, but there is not Free River in most of the Colorado River Basin right now. So that's hopefully clears up some of the questions that were asked yesterday.